Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Three races complete, three more still to go as the action in the inaugural BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Winter Esports Series now moves north of the border into Bonnie, Scotland, and its first visit to Knockhill. Quite fitting that we had Burns Night last night, and for those watching from Scotland, happy Burns Night a day late. It is now a quite tight battle at the top of the championship on drop scores. 8 points separate the top three. Now 3 more races around the magnificent mini roller coaster that is the finest circuit in Scotland. Knockhill in 5 awaits the drivers this evening. Good evening, everybody. Scott Woodward and Andy Thompson back on the microphone once again. It is a three-way fight at the top of the championship so far between Will Redford, Mikey Doble and John Higgins Jr. 8 points between them. But this is now going to be a unique challenge, Andy, that they haven't faced. A circuit with lots more swoops and dips than Donington Park produced. It's tight, it's twisty, it's very treacherous, and it is a circuit where it looks simplistic in layout. It will bite back if you take liberties, and knowing how tricky the circuit can be, we could see more than one driver falling foul of it tonight. I believe Andy, I think his microphone is possibly on mute, I think, which probably the reason why we can't hear him.
Yep, I'm back here, Scott. Sorry about that. That was my mistake. A bit of technical difficulty there. Welcome, Scott. Welcome, viewers. Yeah, Knockhill, the shortest track we've visited out in the series so far. Only 1.26 miles long. Very tight, very undulating, and it's certainly going to be a challenge for the drivers. Not only on them opening couple of laps to get them tyres warmed up that we know take a little bit of time on this Mazda, but also being only 1.6 miles, the front runners will catch the back runners really quick, and it's going to be a tricky test to be able to make sure they get through the field quite easily, and it's going to be certainly a challenge in these 3 15-minute races here tonight, Scott. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, particularly with the cars that we have, of course, very slightly nervous but skittish, but still quite entertaining cars to watch, being the Mazda MX-5 Global Cup cars. This is the championship standings after drop scores are taken into account. It's Will Redford who currently leads the way on 304 points ahead of Mikey Doble on 298, and then it's John Higgins on 295 as we head towards the rest of the second half of the season. It's been quite an exciting run so far, all the way through from start to the first 3 meetings that we've had. Plenty of action. The one key driver that's going to want to get back towards winning ways is Will Redford. He hasn't won a race since the second meeting at second race at Silverstone, but he said the next 4 races on the bounce have had him either just hitting problems, dropping back, having issues getting involved in incidents, which really has hampered his chances. But he's essentially now walking on a tightrope in terms of bad results. He's had all the bad results he can really have. Cannot afford to be missing scores anymore. You can see currently towards the end of the qualifying session here, he is currently on provisional pole at the moment. This is a night, Andy, where he really does need to get himself out of trouble and into winning ways once again if he wants to maintain this championship lead, because he knows the likes of Mikey Doble and John Higgins Jr. are just as strong as him, if not in some cases stronger in some layouts, and also other drivers. As the season goes on, we've seen it, this common theme of drivers getting closer and closer, getting more to grips with the standard set upon these cars and getting nearer towards the front of the field, and that lead group getting bigger and bigger. So Will knows that he might be under a bit more pressure tonight. He has to perform tonight, otherwise he knows the guys immediately behind him in the championship fight are going to take maximum advantage if he slips up even once this evening.
Yeah, definitely. We saw out in Alton Park, Will Redford just literally destroying the field, winning all 3 races quite easily in the end. And since then, we've actually, like you said, seen a bigger group coming up to that front pack and giving Will a lot of challenges. Will had some unfortunate incidents out in a few rounds that really put pay to getting some more wins under his belt. But what it's done in the championship, it's made it super close at the top, as we saw in the points there, which makes it really interesting for our viewers who are watching on YouTube. To be able to obviously root for their top guy, but it's extremely tight, this track. It's extremely undulating. Like you said at the start, one sort of slight mistake on this Knockhill track can really put pay to your whole race event evening. Obviously, we've got 3 15-minute races ahead of us, and it's going to be tricky. Like I said, it's only a short track, so they're going to catch the back markers extremely quick. They probably will catch it within that 15 minutes, and how they navigate the field as well as watching what's happening behind them, it's going to be an interesting race. I mean, it's such a brilliant track and a brilliant car to be on it. You can sort of see with the pictures how much the suspension is having to work on these little Mazdas, but they take it within their stride, and some of the corners are going to be extremely tight. I mean, we've seen there quite a few times, turn 5 and 6, the chicane, how the guys literally try and cut it, but the car bounces left and right. If you can catch that bounce slightly wrong, you can come a crop here. And certainly this caller here, Taylor's turn number 9, it's going to be ones for them late yeeters just trying to get that extra position. So it's going to be an excellent 3 15-minute races ahead tonight, Scott.
Yeah, it definitely is. And the circuit itself, 1.3 miles in length, has existed since 1974. And it's one of those rare circuits in the UK where it hasn't changed very much in terms of layouts and stayed the same. Well, qualifying is complete. We're now starting to load up to our first of 3 races tonight here at Knockhill for the 4th meeting of the Mazda MX-5 Winter Esports Series. The BRSCC, and it's Will Redford where he needs to be to get good points tonight, on pole position alongside key championship rival Mikey Doble, with a good lap at the last 2, put himself on the front row. Then it's Matt Kendall and Tom Griffiths next on the 2nd row, John Higgins Jr. and Richard Jepp come on row 3, and Steve Robertson, Lee Britton, followed by Joseph Doble and Will Blackwell Chambers, a bit disappointed back in 10th. Jack Noller and John Pethick then come next on the 6th row of the grid, moving back to row 7 with another one of John Higgins and Richard Woodson on row 7. It's Chris Etheridge and Harry England next, and Jason Greatrex and Jim Barrett, and Callum Greatrex and Matt Goddard, Richard Woodson, I think, is that another one? I think possibly. James Riley, and then Aidan Edgar, who's back once again, Huel Rosenthal, and that rounds out the 24 cars we have on the grid. So, limited field size for tonight, 24 cars, given it is a smaller circuit. And Will Redford starting on the inside of the front row of the grid, on the left hand side, the white, black and green machine with Mikey Doble in the 2-tone blue and white car. It's last year's Nankang Tyre BMW Compact Cup champion and Genesis GT5 champion as well. There's Tom Griffiths, who is one of a few drivers that's signed himself back up for the MX-5 Super Cup this year. Registrations have opened for the BRSCC 2023 season, but we'll talk about that later, because now the time is for action. 15 minutes for the first time tonight. Meeting number 4 of the Winter Esports Series for the BRSCC at Knockhill. The lights are out and we are underway in Scotland. It's a strong start from pole from Will Redford. He's got Mikey Doble pulling up alongside him on the outside line, and Matt Kendall in the white car in the middle of the shot. He's slotting into 3rd, in towards the first corner for the first time, down Leslie's and up towards Scotsman corner for the first time. Redford defending the inside line, Doble's getting through, and somehow, miraculously, fingers crossed, they've all got through the first couple of corners at the moment, just about unscathed. That might be the curse of the commentator in a second, but we'll wait and see how the rest of the first lap plays out. So Redford leads it then. It's then Doble in 2nd place, Kendall 3rd, Griffiths 4th, John Higgins in 5th position, followed by Jepp in 6th, Doble 7th, Joseph Doble in 8th position. More spins going around. I did speak too soon. I think one of the cars looks like it's Richard Lee Britton's involved in that. He never gets too much luck in these races. We've got Joseph Doble here going wheel to wheel with both Jack Noller and Will Blackwell Chambers as the Taylor's hairpin for the first time. This is already a scrap that's going on over 8th, 9th and 10th as they come come out of Taylor's hairpin, up the hill and over the crest to end the first lap. Redford leads it from Doble and Kendall, from Griffiths, Higgins, Jep, Roberts, Doble and Nola and Blackwell Chambers. Not everyone got through that first lap unscathed, but so far it seems to be Redford in control, Doble giving chase and everyone else scrapping over positions behind.
Yeah, we see Rossdale and Riley there, one in the pit and one out at the moment, probably taking the toe back. But that relatively quite quiet first lap. I mean, from the position gained all the way out, we've seen Jack Nolan taking a little bit of a bump coming around the turn number 3, I think it was, with McIntyre as he comes back on in a very close place there. To be able to, but Griffiths at the background just getting it off course, so it's a couple of drivers here lost 3 places there by that slight little mistake. And like you were saying at the start there, Scott, you know, one little mistake in a course like this, you lose quite a few positions out on track.
It's all about momentum with a circuit like this. It's Tom Griffiths who has slipped back a little bit, and he's now back into 7th place and trying to keep some ahead of the cars that are chasing up. This is a look back from John Higgins in car number in good form position, being chased by Richard Jep, the man who was behind the wheel of the Student Motorsport winning car within the City Car Cup last year. And of course, his team, which has now been rebranded from Met Motorsport to Northbrook College, is now being represented once again for this season to defend their title from 2023. But this is quite a different car compared to the little 7 they've had. Redford's off the road. Will Redford cannot get a break in this series so far. His run of misfortune continues. To mistake exiting the chicane, the run towards Clark Corner. But once again, Redford hitting stride. What does he have to do at this point to get some luck? That's the 5th race in a row that he's gone through without making it with trouble for mistake free. He's back down to what looks to be 5th position, under threat from Alex Griffiths and Dolan behind. He really is finding it difficult out there. Here's the replay. Let's see what happened.
Yeah, just coming up to the chicane, didn't take too much corner here. Exactly like I said, a little bit too much corner. Car got unbalanced and literally lost it at the top of the chicane there. So, like you said, it's a little bit of unfortunate again for Will Redford. Currently in P9 again, he's got it all to do. Currently got about 12 minutes left of this first race to finish. Hopefully make some few positions up, but that'll be some more valuable points that I've lost in the championship here at Knockhill in this first race. So it'll also make the rest of the 2 races that we do have a little bit more difficult if Redford can't get further up. Because looking at the timing tower, they're not big gains like we have been seeing in other track. Very difficult track to make them passing moves on. So it's going to be hard work from now on for Will Redford to try and get up. But what this does do, it gives Mikey Dolan a real good opportunity. He's currently leading out this race right at half a second from Kendall. Higgins, after that probably disappointing qualifying for him, starting in 5th place, finds himself up into 3rd. So the top 3 protagonists at the moment, Dolan's winning out, Higgins is winning out, and unfortunately Redford again will be losing points to the chasers behind him in 2nd and 3rd in the championship. So it makes it super tight at the top of the championship, but I'm pretty sure that Will Redford wanted to be number 1 spot here tonight in Knockhill.
Yeah, good work to pick himself back up through the order. This is Richard Woodman now in the yellow car centre of shot, having a battle with Harwood. That's now Richard Harwood up the inside. Through he goes, and off the road this time has gone John Higgins. Just as we speak about him being up to 3rd, dropped down to what is now much further down the order. He's now down to about 14th or so. So that's the other Higgins in the field. So there's 2 of them in this order. So as they come out of the chicane, another mistake made for him. So he's having to recover, pick up a few more places. Doble still leads the way at the front of the field by just under half a second as they come up through Park Curve. We watch this battle with them recovering. Higgins from Barrett, Harwood and Wootton as they come up towards Taylor's hairpin now once again. So Harwood having to go defensive right to the middle of the track. He cuts off the avenue, and now Susie looking to go around the outside and make this smooth stick on Barrett, which he has done. Barrett then finds himself off onto the grass and just in front of a rather bemused Aiden Edgar just behind him as well. So Edgar back in 18th position. Meanwhile, like I see on the timing tower, Will Redford has moved past Will Blackwell Chambers. In fact, he had done for a second, but there's a battle going on for 8 positions. We just continue to watch Richard Wood. He gets up on 2 wheels over the curb as he goes through the to Duffy's Dip and then through Leslie's corner, into down to Scotsman corner. Now back towards the Arnold Clark chicane up at the top of the crest. There goes Jason Greatrex. There is Will Redford having that big scrap now, looks like with sort of Harry Ingram, in fact. He's dropped back again, so more issues with Will Redford. He was up there just behind battling with Will Blackwell Chambers, but we can get a replay of what happened here. So this is the view we had. In towards Duffy's Dip, he's chasing after Will Redford down the hill. Ahead of there is Joseph Doble. Big dive up the inside in towards Scotsman corner. He gets it stuck, but again clips the curb just like he did. And once again, this time off into the barriers of Will Redford. What does this man need to do after his success early on to get a break in this series?
I think the problem is now he's trying too hard to make that position. He knows he's in a fight for the championship here, and basically making little mistakes there. He probably went for a bit of a lunge there coming into McIntyre into turn number 3. Wasn't really on, and then just completely lost it on the exit of that corner. Lost a couple more positions, so going the wrong way down the field is Will Redford. But back to the front, Mikey Doble under a bit of pressure here from Matt Kendall here. John Higgins is on the back, so a bit of a train of about 5 cars here for the lead as we watch Doble going defensive on the inside here into Taylor's coming out of attendance. Kendall may get a better run on him down this start-finish straight, so we may see Doble going a little bit defensive, trying to just clear his way into that first place as we watch Kendall here coming right under pressure, right onto the back end of Doble's car, not being able to make it do as they go through another lap down deficit.
These two know each other from having raced Combat Cup in real life, so there's a bit of, not necessarily rivalry between the two of them, but they know each other in terms of driving style and having raced on track together. Usually Doble's a tiny bit further forward up the road than Matt Kendall, but Kendall's no slouch either. Looking from the front bumper of John Higgins here in third place, the other leading of the two John Higgins in the field. HSR Motorsport car, over Clark curve. I love the way they ride over these sausage curves and the big curves on the inside line to really get them launching. There's a scrap here for 5th. Steve Roberts is going defensive from the recovering Tom Griffiths. He's now having a move down the outside here on the former Ford Super Cup and Porsche man. The undercut on the exit here. Of course, Steve Roberts also a former multi-time BMW Compact Cup champion in the past also, and having re-squeezed another fellow Compact Cup racer. So the BMW drivers certainly used to their expertise, and Tom Griffiths gets pushed sideways now. Sideways across the road, and round he goes, he's facing backwards. Don't push him the back of the lane. Joseph Doble was so close to making contact. Joseph must have had his heart in his mouth when he watched him roll backwards into his path. Tom Griffiths finally gets it going again, but I have to say that was, in terms of looking at it, that was almost a bit of 50-50. Griffiths could have backed out that move, but at the same time, Roberts didn't really push him that too far onto the grass. But again, he was in front, he had track position, so arguably it was his bit of road to defend. You see a bit of an elbow there on Jason Greatrex, allows the other Higgins through to get past. So an eventful half a lap already for Tom Griffiths. Here's the replay again. He calls one out. He just squeezing him in, and it's a tricky one to call, isn't it?
It certainly is. I mean, Roberts had all the track. He probably knew what he was doing, just push him out there. Joseph Doble literally went, whoa, just seen a car right across the track in front of you. But yeah, extremely getting pushed out to the track, and it was a bit, I'm going to push you to the limit. And then we had the other driver say, no, I'm not going to yield, and literally ended up on the grass there. And unfortunately, Tom Griffiths back down into P12 at the moment, but looks like very little damage on his car. Probably about just over halfway through this first race here, and it's already been action-packed on this very small track, very tight, twisted, technical track, and a lot of the drivers getting caught out, mainly around the turn 3 up to turn number 6 there, Scott. You know, trying to push the boundaries of how much they could get this car on 2 wheels going up through that chicane, and trying to get that undercut into turn number 3 of McIntyre. But currently watching the battle out front, we've got 5 cars here. Matt Kendall in third place under a lot of pressure from Richard Jep. Just trying to defend that last place on the podium here in the first race. Mikey Doble got a little bit of breathing space, but John Higgins has moved up into second place, and Matt Kendall moves down to third. So the second and third in the championship at the moment are rubbing their hands, because Will Redford is not really making any inroad. Currently up to P9 from P12, but will lose a truckload of points to these front 2 runners here in second and third in the championship. So may find himself by the end of the night, if he cannot get back on track in race 2 and 3, he may be taken off the top spot in the championship for the first time this series.
He could well do. That could play specifically into the hands of both Mikey Doble and John Higgins Jr. Up towards the hairpin they come again, the leading quintet. It is Doble, Higgins from Kendall from Jep, and then Steve Roberts just at the back of the queue in the white and black car, just with the offset striping. There he is towards the rear. But you're looking at Matt Kendall here. At the moment, it is BMW Compact Cup champion from MX-5 Super Cup racer. And in terms of the series they run, it's then Compact Cup third, City Car fourth, and then it's kind of a mixture of Porsche, Mazdas and BMWs, and a bit of Formula 4. This is the shot from John Higgins as he rocked over the chicane. Good run here on Matt Kendall on the run towards it. This is how he got second into Clark curve. Big dive up the inside, caught Matt completely off guard, and there he goes. So that was quite a bold pass, but he needed to make that to keep himself in the hunt for good scoring, good points, and to keep Doble in his sights. Kendall here trying to close back up on him here as Jepp is also holding station in 4th. Roberts just keeping up what should be for 5th. The rest of the top 10, if you look at this view back to Mikey Doble under threat in the lead here. It's 6th for Blackwell Chambers, and it's Joseph Doble 7th, and Nola Redford Etheridge's down the outside looks. John Higgins Jr. down the outside line. He might really make the stick here because he had a good run, had really good grip round the outside line. He's putting himself, he's edging closer and closer alongside Mikey Doble. Now, he'll be a brave man if he tries to move down the outside in towards Duffer's Dip. They lean on each other up towards the right-hander. Very tricky breakers then. Last of the late breakers. Doble's got the trap positioning. Head puts 2 wheels up onto the curb. 3 Leslie's at the bottom of the hill. And now into Scotsman who are the right-hander. Jet, meanwhile, is all over the rear bumper of Kendall with Roberts getting involved. It's getting pretty spicy with just less than 3.5 minutes to go in this first race of the evening at Knockhill as the top 5 rock over the chicane back towards Clark Curve.
Yeah, certainly is. Jepp is putting Kendall under all sorts of pressure in for that last space on the podium, but Mikey Doble there having that inside line, being able to keep it coming down into Duffer's Dip. Obviously, like you said, very brave. If Higgins tried to make a move on the outside, would have been pushed out coming through turn number 2 there. So decided to back out. And I think that's how you've got to play it in this track. You've really got to put it on the line to gain positions, as we saw with Higgins passing Kendall a couple of replays ago. You know, you've got to be brave and really committed to try and making them passing moves, because it's an extremely hard track to get them passing moves done in a nice, clean manner. So you've really got to put it all on the line here. But currently watching the front runners again, and Mikey Doble coming under a lot more pressure from Jack Higgins. Kendall again getting under pressure by Richard Jepp as well, and Roberts at the back is just enjoying the scenery in front of him as it all unfolds. And I wonder if it's going to be a late incident here, considering we've only got sort of like 2.5 minutes left of this first race.
Sure, the person who doesn't want to be involved in any kind of incident is Mikey Doble, but he might not have a choice here because he's now got John Higgins Jr. pushing himself alongside. He gets his nose in front, but again, stuck on the outside line. Doble knows he has track position, and watch out for Matt Kendall in the white car behind in 3rd place, and the yellow car with the navy blue rear end. That's Richard Jepp in 4th position. Roberts in there too, and again, John Higgins Jr. using the outside trick with the grip he's got. He gets himself fractionally in front across the line. He's in front by some 15 thousandths of a second. Now, does he dare go down the outside again for the second time? Didn't work the first time. It's attempt number 2, not quite. He knows he has to sit back in line and wait for another opportunity. Running out of time a little bit. We're coming up towards 90 seconds of the race, time to go before we head towards the final lap of the race. Head all across the curves up towards the top of the chicane once more. So, Doble, Higgins, Kendall, Jepp and Roberts. Quick as that, they've got about 6 seconds or so plus over the next group of cars, which is just a duel between Will Blackwell Chambers and Joseph Doble. The second of the Dobles up there in 7th place. And as for Will Redford, as we mentioned, he hasn't made much more progress than P9. He did pass Chris Etheridge for that, and Tom Griffiths has followed him through not for far long. Up towards the hairpin now for the second to last time, because when they cross the line, lap times are in the 55-56 second range. They'll cross the line now with one more lap to go, so in American terms this is white flag time. Let's see if Mikey Doble can hold on for another race victory. He'll be looking to try and make it another race win in his tally. He currently holds at the moment 4 for the season, having taken 2 at Silverstone and 2 at Donington Park. Can he make it 5? Here he goes up the inside, and Doble saw it late. He had to let him have the room, and Higgins gets through on the inside. Now Doble will try and get back, but he has to slot it. He knows going side by side towards the top of the chicane was never going to work, but now it's stacked up everyone else behind them. So John Higgins Jr. then into the lead in the last lap of the race, and Doble throws it back up the inside towards Clark Corner. Big dive from Mikey Doble up the inside over the curb, and he's made it stick. But has it cost him momentum? He squeezes John Higgins back to the inside line. Here comes Matt Kendall on the outside. Can he go to 2nd place? Jepp is in there too. It's all going to be a bun fight down towards Taylor's hairpin for the final time. Kendall round the outside of everybody down the outside on the brakes. Higgins gives a bump for the back of Doble. He shoves Kendall out wide. Jepp's up to 3rd on the sprint, and so is Roberts up to 4th. It's a mischief in Kendall. He's been pushed out down to 5th. But on the run to the checkered flag, Mikey Doble wins a very entertaining first race of the evening at Knockhill. It's 2nd for John Higgins, 3rd for Richard Jepp, 4th for Roberts, and 5th for Kendall. The top 5 covered by less than 1 second at the checkered flag. Exceptional stuff in that last couple of laps.
Yeah, I think Mikey Doble, whatever you can do, I can do better there. Obviously, John Higgins getting the best of him coming around turn 3, catching Doble sort of sleeping a little bit. And Mikey Doble was like, do you know what, I've got to put it all on the line here. Made an excellent move. Like we previously saw another driver into turn number 7, Clark, managed to get the move stuck and still managing to keep the win. So I'd imagine John Higgins was like, yes, finally got past Mikey Doble, but then Mikey just came straight back at him within a couple of corners. What a great race. But obviously Kendall, that last corner, tried that outside move around to turn number 9 in Taylor's. literally lost all his momentum, and that's what we've been saying about these MX-5 cars. You lose the momentum in this car. He was fighting for that 3rd place, and then all of a sudden got pushed down to 5th place because he lost all his speed on the exit of turn number 9. But what a great front race for the first 15 minutes. Will Redford literally leading the race. A couple of incidents there in the track, ended up down in P9th. So really good points there for Mikey Doble and John Higgins.
Yes, indeed. I think we saw a brief moment there of Blackpool Chambers and Joseph Doble trying to make a switch for 6th position. But this is essentially the result for race number 1 that sets the grid for race number 2, which they're lining up already. So Mikey Doble took the victory in race number 1, but only just from John Higgins in 2nd place. Then it's Richard Jepp and Steve Roberts in the 2nd row of the grid from Matt Kendall and Will Blackwell Chambers. Then it's Joseph Doble and Jack Noller on the 4th row from Will Redford, who's got some work to do once again from 9th on the grid. Then Tom Griffiths rounds out the top 10. Hopefully he's calmed himself down after that spin, after making contact, being pushed on the grass by Steve Roberts. It's Chris Etheridge and John Higgins in 12th position. It's John Higgins Jr. up on the front row of the grid. But it's Richard Harwood and Jason Greatrex on the 7th row of the grid from Harry England and Richard Wootton. Lee Britton and Matt Goddard then come next. And the rest of the field lines up for race number 2 of the evening. Doble looking for the double, but can John Higgins Jr. or anyone else try and depose him? Find out. We're underway for race number 2 in the Winter Esports Series event at Knockhill tonight. And once more, it's Doble back to the racing line, to the outside, on down towards the right-hander at Duffus Dip. But it's Doble who'll get the whole shot. He leads in towards turn 1 over the curbs. It's as you were at the end of that first race, to the top 6 all line astern. Trying to make an early dive down the outside of Jack Norris, turning towards the Scotsman corner for the very first time. And it's contact in the back. Jason Greatrex was involved in that. Let's see if the other car that got involved. I think it might well have been Harry England in the 333 possibly. Yeah, it was Harry England in the 333, so it's had trouble. He's supposed to get going again. So both Harry and Jason once again recovering after the first lap incident. Meanwhile, the leaders are back through Railway, Clark Bend, or Taylor's Bend up towards the hairpin. Now under brakes to see if anyone can try to pose him. And there goes Steve Roberts, the huge dive up inside. I thought he wasn't going to stop and go straight into the side of John Higgins Jr. He does get it anchored up, but it compromises his run off the hairpin at the end of lap number 1. So he tried to go second for a moment, didn't work out, and now Matt Kendall gets his revenge by managing to out-drag him across the line. So it's Doble that leads, Higgins second from Jepp, Kendall and Roberts at the end of the lap. Will Chambers in 6th. Top 6 trying to break away here, with Doble in prime position, while Redford only up 1 spot from the start in 8th.
I mean, how did he stop that car? I just thought he was an XZ missile coming in to turn number 9 there in Taylor's. I literally thought he was just going to take half the field out there. Somehow managed to get that car stopped. I think it's, oh no, got a spinner, Richard Jepp spinning his car there. So he is now falling down the order, trying to get his car back onto track, facing the wrong way down the track. So will be finding himself right at the back of the field, and that is how quickly he can go from the front of the field to the back. But look at this battle at the front. We've got Roberts there in 3rd place, Matt Kendall just trying on the outside. Will Redford up 4 places from where he started, and wow, just Roberts just getting pushed out wide there on the exit of turn number 9, losing all the momentum, and again finding himself going the wrong way down the field into P8. But Will Redford trying to get up, currently up 3 places from where he started, back into P6. Obviously the top 10 in this race get inverted for race number 3. So it's going to be interesting to see the front runners that have been who was that? That was I think that was Joseph Doble there doing some sort of acrobats coming up through the chicane there of turn 5 and 6. Wow.
Like it, yeah. I think that moved Matt Kendall at the hairpin was possibly a bit of payback for what Roberts did to him at the end of race number 1. I think you can push me out wide, try this one on the side, and put him out wide quite a few positions. So he's now down to what's currently showing as 8th position at the moment. Will Redford has moved up now into the top 5. Further back, you see here the spin for Steve Roberts. It goes from bad to worse for the former Compact Cup champion. He's now spun his way out of the top 10. He's now down to 15th position if he can get going. 16th, 17th, all the way down to the base of the top 20 by the looks of it. Problems for Steve then, he's going to try and spend the rest of his race chasing his way back up through the order as best he can. This is Richard Harwood scrapping away with Chris Etheridge. This is a battle over the final top 10 spot. Also in here too is Lee Britton, who's having a slightly quieter evening of racing tonight. In 12th position at the moment with Richard Wootton riding in 13th. We see the front runners rocking and bouncing their way over the chicane, over the big sausage curbs on the chicanes. They ride their way through. Wonderful shot in real life when you get the camera just right on a live stream or on the TV pictures, and you see the cars just gliding over the curbs. It's great to see. You get them here at Clark Curve as well, where they're taking huge chunks of curb on the inside line. Meanwhile, John Higgins Jr. has gone to the front here, so he's managed to do what he couldn't do in race number 1, and that's to get himself in front and stay in front of Mikey Doble. Now Ken tries to chase him down. It's Doble's second and fourth though. Joseph Doble with a very healthy start in the first couple of laps to push himself up into fourth place already, ahead of Will Redford in P5. We see it's John Blackwell Chambers in sixth, and it's Nola, Higgins, Griffiths and Harwood rounding out the top 10. So Higgins now has the advantage out in front, but Doble now goes from the hunted to the hunter. He's now going to start chasing after Higgins. He's the one who's going to put him under pressure. Anyone who can try and put pressure into a mistake. It's possibly someone who won 2 championships in one day. So he can manage that and manage to cope with the pressure. I'm sure he can apply it just as well to get that lead back.
Yeah, definitely is. So it's real reverse from race number 1 with Higgins taking the lead with Doble coming out. But we've got Will Redford here putting the other Doble, Joseph Doble, under a lot of pressure to try and get that into P4. A lot of more movers in this second race. Lee Britton up 6 places for race started. John Petherick up 7 places. You know, I don't really think there's a lot of overtaking as such. There's a lot of mistakes by the top drivers. As we saw earlier on, we got Roberts right down to the back end of the field. Richard Jepp at the back end of the field. We've just seen a little bit more mistakes here in the second race as they're all vying for them top positions. But at the moment, John Higgins is still leading the race. Mikey Doble trying to chase him down. I'm pretty sure John Higgins will be closing off Clark Corner, but I think they're now starting to gain and catch up on some back markers, I believe. So it's going to be interesting times. John Higgins there in the front of the race. Michael Doble, Kendo at the moment still keeping with him, but these top 3 are slightly pulling away from the rest of the field. But I'm pretty sure Will Redford would try and close down that gap. But just saw there at the bottom of the screen a back marker that might come into play.
Well, do you think about Richard Jepp? I think is recovering after his spin earlier on. Matt Kendall, meanwhile, has the fastest lap of the race. Meanwhile, further back, this is John Higgins scrapping with Tom Griffiths into the hairpin. Higgins makes the move and maintains 8th position. Doesn't get the best traction on the exit, and now gives Griffiths the chance to squeeze in front. And I think the difference between the last time we tried this is that he's not being squeezed right to the edge of the road. You get some clear run out towards Duffus Dip. The move's going to be complete here for Tom Griffiths. Up the inside, we've got the onboard shot here, looking forwards at that battle we've just been talking about from Richard Harwood. Now we see there Griffiths tries to make that move. He kind of half-heartedly went up the inside. Love tap as he goes past. Thank you very much. Out of the way. Richard Harwood takes full advantage and squeezes past and takes full advantage of the mistake there from Higgins as he comes through. So Redford, meanwhile, he's looking pretty good at that time. His fastest lap of the race is held by Matt Kendall on a 50. Well, it's a 55.37 last time by. So Will Redford is pushing hard now to try and close this gap down. He's about a couple of tenths quicker than everyone else. So towards the head, he goes to try and get himself onto a podium place. He knows he has to try and get himself as close as possible to Joe Doble, if not ahead of him, to try and minimise the damage from race number 1. Here just behind it is the battle going on for 5th, 6th and 7th. So Joseph Doble, Jack Nola and Will Blackwell Chambers over the crest to start another lap. So Doble's looking in good form here tonight, both of them. They're also getting the mix of it here as they're trying to hold up. One's trying to defend positions, the other one's trying to attack to get his lead back.
Yeah, they certainly are. You know, you've got these little pods again forming in this second race. We're currently watching the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th with Joseph Doble, Jack Nola and Will Blackwell Chambers just trying to get the positions at that level. All over the back there of Nola. Nola been a bit quiet this race. We saw him early on in the season right at the front end of the grid, but certainly having a quiet race at the moment. Currently holding that reverse grid pole is John Higgins there in 10th place, but does have Lee Britton behind him for a little bit of company, and Lee probably relish the chance of being at the front of one of these grids. One of the drivers that has not really had a lot of luck in this series, but is only 1 place off that reverse grid pole as we look back to the 5th place between Joseph Doble, Jack Nola and Will Blackwood Chambers, and going side by side again here down to Duffus Dip, and that is a great move on the outside there of Jack Nola being able to take them. Spoke too soon.
Yeah, it's Joseph Doble lost it on the exit, and I think Will Blackwell Chambers in that occasion to go a bit of a helping hand from Tom Griffiths inadvertently. I don't think Tom intended to make any kind of contact. He just found that Will Blackwell Chambers got a little loose, and that was it. Now, meanwhile, this is Matt Kendall ahead of Mikey Doble, so there's been a change not just for the lead, but for second place. And look at Will Redford, he really has closed up onto the back of these two, scrapping over 2nd and 3rd. He might make it 3 abreast down towards the hairpin now once again. Under the brakes, looks like Kendall will try and hold on to 2nd, but Doble's back up the inside. And look at Redford getting superb traction on the X. He's going to try and push himself alongside, try and get himself into a podium post as quickly as possible. Over the crest they go, past Jason Gravetrex, who's had 1 or 2 issues tonight in terms of this second race after his early collision. There in front there is John Higgins Jr. trying to pick up another race win throughout the season. He's taken a couple so far this season, but you see Will Redford cannot be any closer. Absolutely sort of welded onto the rear bumper of Matt Kendall as he thumps over the curb through the Scotsman corner. Now he comes over the crest through Butchers, now through the Arnold Clark chicane, rocking over the curbs and hammering that suspension as they come back towards Clark once again at the end of another lap. We're past half distance, 6 minutes left to go. And still, John Higgins Jr. now has a 1.6 second lead there ahead of Doble, Kendall and Redford, so they're covered by about half a second. So that's where the action really is. We see here Richard Harbour's up to 8th, he's 6th place, he's just ahead of the other Higgins in the field. This is Higgins, Griffin scrapping over 7th. Everywhere you look in the top 10, there are battles all to be had for positions, particularly those that are scrapping over points in vital positions in the championship.
Yeah, 100%. John Higgins at the moment got a 1.7 gap over Mikey Doble. Mikey Doble was really watching his rear with Matt Kendall putting him under all sorts of pressure, which has enabled Will Redford to get onto the back of them as well. So it's going to be super tight. But currently watching the battle out here for P7, Lee Britton, John Higgins there in P8, just trying to put him under a little bit of pressure. Richard Harwood has just been racing his drivers quite nicely there. But let's have a look back at Will Redford here going on to another lap. And this is how Will Redford has got third, coming down through Duffer's Dip into turn 3, just diving on the inside and making it stick. That was a perfect move, and that's sort of the passing moves that you have to try and make here. But Lee Britton, as we were watching that replay, was up in 7th place, down in 17th place, so had a little bit of mistake. I bet that was out of turn number 3.
Looks like it. This is a replay here of the other Higgins in the field, which is John Higgins, I think senior must be. Dive inside Lee Britton, and that was never really going to work, and they both pirouette, waltzing in perfect harmony by the looks of it, because it looks like it was John Higgins may have the spin. Britton carried on but didn't spin so much, so he's trying to make his way back up the order now, down in 17th position. Hasn't got long to go to make that happen, but he'll try and climb up as best he can. This is further back in the field here, which is further up from where Lee Britton is. This is Blackwood Chambers battling with Pethick, Thridge and Wootton in towards the right-hander at Duffer's Dip. It's now through Leslie's and Scotsman corner for another time. We're coming up toward under 5 minutes to go in this second race. Remember, it's the top 10 gets reversed in this one, so at the moment it looks like it is going to be Chris Etheridge, who is currently on that reverse grid pole, wide there from Richard Wood in the background. Meanwhile, this is the quartet still fighting over the lead. This is now the gap that's come down from what was 1.6 seconds. It's down by about half a tenth or so half a second out of Higgins' lead from Doble and Co. He's got Redford for company. He's probably the last person he wants to be sat right behind him applying pressure. And Matt Kendall in fourth. But of course, remember, Mikey Doble can really handle pressure. And he had to defend his position in the finale of the GT5 challenge to win the title. He had to employ all those tactics again last time out at Donington Park, when he held back the tide and just about held on for as long as he could. Now the rest of the pack is heading its way down towards the Dip again. This is further back for Tom Griffiths, who is recovering after his mistakes, and into 12th ahead of the other Higgins in the field, and got Matt Garvey in there too, as well as Steve Roberts. So those two, after their early mishaps, have also tried to pick their way back up the order, but kind of mired a little bit in the midfield so far as we come towards the closing stages.
Definitely is. I mean, we just saw there John Pethick has an excellent second race, up 13 positions from where he started, finds himself in P9. And if he manages to keep that position, it'll be in second place for this third race. Like we said, the top 10 get inverted. You can see how close Pethick, Etheridge and Wootton, I think it is, although it's David W. Is that Will Redford?
No, that was a back marker that got sideways exiting the corner right in front of him. That was James Riley in the 19 car. I think the leaders must have had their hearts in their mouths watching that one, because James Riley had a spin right in front of the leaders and still having difficulty getting back on the circuit now. But let's look at the replay of that to see if we can see exactly how that worked out. So James Riley there, just in the background of the leaders coming a cropper. So Riley comes in towards the right hander at Scotsman corner, just runs deep, gets over the gravel. Let's see how close he was to making contact. Oh, that's too close for comfort, that really is. Redford actually went across the gravel to try and avoid that. He lost a couple of car lengths. Very lucky for neither of the top four to get caught up in that. And I think James Riley must be the luckiest of all not to get collected. He has made it got it going again, back in 22nd position, but I think everyone involved in this leading quartet of cars are incredibly fortunate not to get caught up in anything unnecessary. This is Blackwood Chambers battling with Pethick, with Joseph Doble just ahead of him. This is 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th backwards. One car stacking up behind them as they come towards over the crest for another lap. Minute and a half to go in this second race. There's Aidan Edgar back in 19th position. He's got James Barrett, number 18, coming far behind him. Richard Jep trying to make his way up, as is also the Briton. And then Steve Roberts back in 16th place after he had the early mishap and spin a couple of times. He got put onto the grass and had a spin at the hairpin. So a successful of races for him thus far. But if we kind of work our way through the field upwards, because everyone's kind of settled in now and kind of residing a little bit mostly for where they're going to finish in this order. But it might still be quite tight at the front. We've still got the top three covered by less than a second. So could well change within the last couple of laps.
Yeah, you said that lead that John Higgins had at the front has massively come down. Now you can see it's less, about 0.2 of a second. Mikey Doble is right behind John Higgins, so it's going to be a really big battle out in this closing stages in race number 2. Pretty much a role reversal from race number 1, where we had Mikey Doble at the front and John Higgins at the front of the race here in race number 2. So Mikey Doble is going to have to try and get it done, and I'm pretty sure John Higgins will try and close off Clark, where we saw Doble make that move on the final lap in the final couple of corners. But it's close enough certainly to be tight here. Will Redford just about a second off, but he's made a really good recovery considering where he started in this second race. So I believe this is the last lap. John Higgins just racing for the line here, and will get no, he has another lap here, so he's still got to try and get this done here. Probably around about a second of the difference there from finishing the race or not, but John Higgins could not slow down because he does have a Mikey Double all over the back of him. Will Redford just off there, not really making up a lot of time, so it's between these two who will take the race win in race 2. Will it be Mikey Double getting a double race win, or will John Higgins be able to hold off Mikey Double? A little bit of a mistake there coming out of turn number 4, coming up through the chicane here on there. I do not think that Mikey Double is going to be able to keep this done, so this could possibly be a first win here tonight for John Higgins. So 1-all in the races, but these two drivers will be 9th and 10th here for the third race, so it's going to be interesting to see. They've been at the front of the field for the first 2. The third race, they are going to be mid-pack, so they're going to have to try and deal with that. But John Higgins comes up here to the line. Great race for John Higgins, gets a race win in race number 2. Mikey Double in second place. Will Redford up 6 places from where he started, finishes in 3rd, and Matt Kendall finishes in 4th.
Yeah, John Higgins, I think that flag that he didn't want to see was the white flag put in there. This is Paul Griffiths trying to go down the outside of Chris Etheridge here if he can. The sprint to the line. Etheridge might just beat Griffiths here. This is actually the scrap for who gets onto with the reverse grid pole. It's going to be a drag race to the line. It's going to be Etheridge or Griffiths who got it. Etheridge only just got it. Griffiths will have to start 11th. Etheridge then will be the one on reverse grid pole. The C1 Racing Club driver will be starting from P1 for race number 3, and I'm sure he'll be quite delighted with that. He'll have John Pethick alongside him on the front row on that reverse grid pole. Then it will be Will Blackwood Chambers and Joseph Doble. Meanwhile, it is going to be John Higgins Jr. who picked up that victory in race number 2 from Mikey Doble in second place, then Redford and Kendall on the 4th row of the grid together. Of course, then Noller and Harwood on road number 3. So, as we head out of the second race, we've got this short little session now to kind of make sure we can set and sort out the grid. Our third race. I think we'll be able to give you the results in a moment once we have to sort out some of the background admin in order to make sure people are where they should be. So here are the results for race number 2 then. So it is a victory for there we go, a victory for John Higgins at the top of the order from Mikey Doble in second place and Will Redford in 3rd. That's better form for him. Have to start from 8th on the grid though to try and pick his way back up towards the front. Then it's Matt Kendall 4th, Jack Noller 5th, then Richard Harwood in 6th, from Joseph Doble, Will Blackwood Chambers, John Pethick, and Chris Etheridge who finished 10th. He will start race number 3 from the reverse grid pole. He was only just beat Tom Griffiths to the line, so he will have to start 11th from Richard Wood 12th. Then it's John Higgins, the other John Higgins in the field. John Higgins Jr. is the one that will start back in 10th off his reverse grid switch around. It's then 14th place for Lee Britton, 15th for Harry England after his first lap spin. 16th goes to Matt Goddard, 17th for Richard Jepp after he had the spin exiting the chicane for Clark Curve. Aidan Edgus will then start 18th from James Barrett. Steve Roberts with lots of work to do from 20th. And not a great night for the Greatrexes either. 21st for Callum Greatrex, 22nd for James Riley, who had that very nervy spin exiting Scotsman Corner that almost caught out the leaders. Jason Greatrex got caught up at Scotsman Corner on the very first lap. And Hugh Rosenthal, who had to pit for quite a lot of that race, will start at the back in 24th position. So as the grid gets itself reshuffled around in this very brief, very short warm-up session just to make sure everyone is in the right order. It's a winner piece so far tonight for Mikey Doble and for John Higgins Jr. There might be capacity for a third victor in Will Redford if he can pick his way through, but in terms of those who are starting in the order they should be in reverse grid, it I think should be an advantage to the likes of possibly Will Blackwell Chambers, and maybe also if you look in there too, there is a possibility for someone like, maybe he can pick up a couple of places just outside the top 10, possibly Tom Griffiths to get himself up there, but I would expect the guys who are starting back in 8th, 9th and 10th to be quickly moving their way through, as should the likes of Matt Kendall and others. So it should be quite fascinating to watch them pick their way through, particularly when there's just one more race to go, and it is such a tight and congested circuit, and it's very tight and twisty 1.3 mile Knockhill circuit. It's not the easiest to pass on, and it won't be the easiest to make the way through, particularly when you're starting a bit further in the pack, regardless of where you finished in race 2.
100%, but I think Will Redford is going to be interesting to see how he tackles this third race. You know, we've seen him in the previous, when he's been back in this position, he takes his time and tries to methodically get through the field, but I think he can ill afford to do that in this third race. I think he needs to put it all on the line to try and get ahead, to try and get a couple of spaces between John Higgins there and Mikey Doble, to try and recoup some of the points he lost in that first race. We may see a different Will Redford out here in the third race, but it's good to see some new drivers on the front end of the grid. It just shows the progression that the guys are making here on iRacing in this MX-5 from where we started out in Oldham Park. Guys really getting used now to these cars, how they handle, and we're now seeing more of the back runners coming up to the front and able to get onto the pole position here in race number 3 at Knockhill. And it's going to be interesting to see. We saw Pefik having a really good charge, getting up 13 places in that second race, which gave him the opportunity to get to the front end of the grid in this third race. So really riding the high is Pefik, and he might be an outside chance. If he can get a good start, get away from the chasers behind him and get a big enough lead, we might see a brand new winner here in round 3 at Knockhill.
It's a definite possibility, given that this circuit doesn't make it easy to pass. They will certainly try and take advantage as much as they can. Just whilst we're waiting for the grid to line up, just to mention that if there's anyone that's watching who happens to be planning to race with the BRSCC for real this season, in the real world, registrations have now opened for 2023, so you can head on to the BRSCC's Race Hub entry system and register for your respective series or championship. The response genuinely in the first 3 days has been absolutely phenomenal. I think we've had, it must be about over 180, 190 registrations in terms of drivers across the board, all the different championships and series that are open. Some very healthy looking championships already, including, I may well add, in particular the 3 Mazda series, and in particular Super Cup is looking incredibly healthy with quite a few numbers in just 3 days. So some very formidable drivers already registering for this season, some former champions and drivers who have won championships in Mazdas in the past. Certainly one to watch out for as well. So if you are racing in BRSCC on one of their calendars this season, then be sure to head over to the Race Hub and get themselves registered for that, for whatever your series or championship is. Also to mention that if you're looking to enter races, they will be opening this coming Monday, so Monday the 30th will be opening, so at some point in the morning. That is the plan, to get everyone opened up race entries on the Monday morning as well. So this is the grid then, the reverse grid for the top 10 switched around for round number 12 of the BRSCC Winter Esports Series here at Knockhill. So it is Chris Etheridge who starts on pole position alongside John Pefik on the front row. Then it's Will Blackwell Chambers and Joseph Doble looking to continue their battles from race 2 from the second row. Richard Harwood and Jack Null then come next, and Matt Kendall and Will Redford. And crucially, he starts ahead of Mikey Doble and John Higgins Jr., the 2 winners from tonight. Then it's Tom Griffiths back in 11th, with Richard Wood alongside him on the 6th row of the grid. Row 7 is where we find John Higgins, Senior, from Lee Britain in 14th place. Then it's Harry England and Matt Goddard. Richard Jepp and Aidan Edgar come next, and James Barrett and Steve Roberts rounding out the top 20, much lower than he wants to be. Got some work to do from the 10th row. Then it's Callum Greatrex, James Riley, Jason Greatrex and Bill Rosenthal. Both of the Greatrex. He's not having the greatest of nights in terms of luck. Hopefully that changes with a slightly higher finishing position, and they're starting right towards the back here in race number 3. So the lights already on. That's perfect timing. As you see the 24 strong field. I think bar 1 I think is missing at the back, but now looking at the lights, can Etheridge hold on? What about the winners from races 1 and 2? Can they pick their way through from the back of the top 10? Let's find out. It's a clean start from the first few cars down towards turn 1, but it is Etheridge then. Looks like he will hold on unless Pefik can sneak up the inside in towards Duffer's Dip. First time into the right-hander. Etheridge does win the whole shot. Blackwood Chambers goes round the outside of John Pethick to take second place. They're all finding in line of Stone. Redford making the big dive down the outside and again can't stay out of trouble. He's down the outside of Kendall, clatters into the side of him, makes the move stick. He's now up to about 6th or 7th place, it looks like, over the crest, over the chicane for the first time. Out over the Arnold Clark chicane, down the short straight towards Clark Curve. Blackwood Chambers was making a dive there for 3rd place also. Blackwood Chambers got some leading fact because Rowler's gone the pole sitter. Chris Etheridge off into the gravel. Blackwood Chambers is almost stacked up a little bit, and look, everyone's piling around him. Here comes Joseph Dover to the lead. You've got Pethick in there, Nola, Harwood, and Will Redford. Remember, he started back in 8th on the grid, already up to almost 6th or 5th as John Pethick has to hit the brakes everywhere. They're all stacking up on the exit. Doble holds on to the lead. It's 2 by 2 like NASCAR up the hill, up to end the first laps. It could be either way, Blackwood Chambers or Doble. It's going to be Doble leading the gap across the line. Down towards Duck and Stip they go. And now Doble will try and get the lead here down towards the right-hander. By the hill goes Redford down the outside too. He's to 5th. Making a 4th past Harwood. He gets through. Or does he? Harwood will try and fight back. He came back down the outside again for 3rd on Nolan this time. Redford is not hanging around here because Mikey Doble is still back in 7th place and Ken's still back in 8th. So Will Redford already kind of flies way through the field, picks away half the spots he needs to, and on the charge for a podium place almost certainly on lap number 2 as there goes up the inside. Nola for 2nd place, passing Doble trying to chase after Blackwood Chambers. It is all action after a lap and a half.
Yeah, it certainly is, and exactly as I thought, Will Redford is putting it all on the line here. Really super aggressive at the start of this race, already up to 4th place, up 4 places. And like you said, Mikey Doble getting up 3 places there, moving up into P number 6. But John Higgins, I'm just looking at where he is down the fit.
Contact to the back, Richard Wooden, and that's Chris. Higgins, in fact, actually. And then contact to join back onto the circuit, so not that well. Meanwhile, Blackwood Chambers still leads, but it's all action for 2nd place still with Nola, Doble, and here comes Redford diving up the inside of Harwood. Into 4th place he goes, thumps the curb, now on the run up towards Butcher and then the Arnold Clark chicane. Blackwood Chambers is away and gone out in front. He's up the road by the tune of almost 2.5 seconds of everybody else. Looking at his mirrors thinking, where's everyone gone? But he might well be happy with that because he knows he has to try and pull away if he can. He's not too far away in the points either. He's about 4th placing points at the moment. He's got some catching up to do. I think the points he would have caught might not have caught him back up too much, but if he can stay in front and pull away, whilst everyone else, like with the likes of Redford, Mikey Doble and Kendall are stuck in the top 10 and battling over top 5 and podium places, he might well be the dark horse here to take victory if he can hold it on for the next 12 minutes or so to come back up the hill and lap number 3.
I don't know if you noticed there, look who's in the pits here in P22. John Higgins, our race number 1 winner and 2nd place in race number 2, is currently in the pits, just coming on the pit exit. So really lost a lot of points in race number 3, so caught up in some sort of incident. But the person with that red mist in his eyes is Will Redford, trying to make up for amends for that opening race here. Currently in 3rd place, up 5 places from where he started. Jack Noah, who's just in front of him, up 4 places with Will Blackwood Chambers up 2 places into that number 1 position. But just looking back the field, Mikey Doble currently in P6. So, you know, at the moment, playing into Will Redford's hands, just being super aggressive on these opening 3-4 minutes of this 3rd race to try and do. And Mikey Doble just trying to look on the inside there into turn number 9 in Taylor's, not quite getting it done, losing a lot of speed, so he'll be coming under a lot of pressure here from Matt Kendall in P7th, coming down here, but it's Mikey not making a lot of movement, and like we saw earlier on in the races, it's extremely hard in this mid-pack field to make up the positions. Will Redford really got out the bike like a racehorse on that opening lap. Currently up in P3 at the moment, trying to chase down Jack Noller, so could get some valuable points here in this 3rd race after a disastrous 1st race.
Redford trying to make the move. So the Dobles are using all the curbs and some to flaunt themselves over these Scottish curbs in every single corner they take to Scotland. They've been doing it up at the exit of Scotsman corner and the same through the chicane. Meanwhile, Redford's got the run here for 2nd place. He's got himself on the inside of Noller before they even get to the braking zone. He's got the number 42 car in front, and as he hits the middle pedal and in there around the head, riding all over the curb on the exit. Redford is more determined, I think, than anyone else to get a good result here. It's Harry Ingram further back, and this is him back in 17th place, followed by Callum Greytrex and back there in 18th place, and Richard Jett, who's trying to make his way up the order. Meanwhile, this is just a scraps going on between Lee Brisson and Tom Griffiths, with a sort of dancing around John Pethick in front of him there, trying to pick his line towards Duffers Dippers. Griffiths again launched himself over the curb. It can be one of those moves where if you really go for it and hit the cut just the sweet spot, you can get it just right. one miscalculation over the curve, it can send the car sideways or getting all out of shape as they come across the crest. Chambers has now got a 0.7 lead, so it's slow down penalty for Jack Noller. In fact, Jack Noller has a slowdown, which means he was in third place. He has to try and possibly he'll have to let a few more cars pass in order to try and serve that one. And there's contact further back as Rick Harbour goes across the nose of Matt Kendall. Off goes the 28 car into the tyres. It wasn't a heavy contact with the wall, but he managed to get it round and he's lost several places. And I thought he was going to drive straight into the path of Jason Greatrex there, but thankfully he saw him coming and rejoins in 12th position. So let's just see if we can see a replay of that. It looks as though, from what I saw of that, Kendall got the good run. Maybe Harwood was so focused battling with Mikey Doble, he didn't really realise that Kendall was right there. He spotted him, told him he was there, but that's a tricky one to call, that one, Andy. I'm not sure which way to go with that. It looks to me, not to be too diplomatic, like it was more 50-50.
Yeah, I would put it. I'll certainly put it under 50. But look at Will Chambers doing off-road racing. What that has done is just let Will Redford just catch right up to the back of him. Mikey Doble's moved up to 4th place, so his brother in front, Joseph Doble, might give him a helping hand. But towards the end of this race, to mitigate the points that Will Redford will try to gain back here, as Will Redford goes down into turn number 9 and relatively easy pace. And I think you're exactly right. He's really got the bit between his teeth. Will Redford here in the 3rd race, coming up from 8th on the grid, and in short time has got the race lead in this 3rd race. Will Chambers will be putting them under a little bit of pressure to try and get that position right, but I just think he's just got a lot of pace and a lot to prove to himself, really, Will Redford, in this 3rd race. As we look further back, Lee Britton still having a good battle with John Perfect, started 2nd on this 3rd race, coming down into P9 after his great race 2, and there's someone else in the background coming off round turn number 3. So a lot of war of attrition in this 3rd race. A lot of the drivers putting everything on the line, and like you said, Scott, you know, it's such fine margins to get the corners spot on, or if you take it a little bit too much, that's when the car can get spun out.
Yeah, particularly with these slightly nervy MX-5s that can obviously be a little bit unpredictable at times, as we know. We've now just passed half distance. It feels like he's gone longer, but only just past the half distance mark in this race. And Will Redford, even though he leads by half a second, he's not getting away terribly that much from the Blackwell Chambers. The Doble was to switch around, so Joseph is now slotted in behind Mikey, so Mikey now up in the P3. Might be slightly strategical, given that he knows that Mikey Doble is up there battling for the championship. So I wonder, now that he's been released, he's now going to start to chase after these top 2 if they get in amongst it, because they're not pulling away from each other or have that much of a gap through there. Although Redford does carry quite a bit of speed through the chicane, and actually gained about a 10th or so just in that corner alone. So I think that Redford might not have a good run. He was a little wide over the gravel. It looks to me as if he's got an opportunity to extend that gap even more. Mikey Doble is still 3rd from Joseph Doble in 4th, and it's Kendall in 5th, Noller 6th, Griffiths, Britton, Pethick and Steve Roberts rounding out the top 10. So Roberts is actually he's had a pretty good run up the order. He started 20th, remember. He's up 10 spots in half the race into 10th position. Further back here, that was James Barrett, who was having a scrap there, I think, with, I don't know exactly who it was. Yeah, it's a back mark, it looks like. This is the other John Higgins in the field, cast it back. This is John Higgins, who won race number 2, so he's having to pick his way through from 19th. And there was Matt Goddard there for a second as we head towards the hairpin again. There is Harry England in 16th place. He's one RNE Fiesta Junior representative in the field. This is Etheridge, who had the reverse grid pole, starting way further back. Harwood after his contact with Kendall earlier on, and Richard Jepp, who hasn't really recovered all that much, or been able to recover that much after his spin right here at the end of the 2nd race. Further up the order, Steve Roberts there holding on to 10th. John Pethick there is now holding station, him in 9th, but it's all actually in front of them, because whilst the top 2 are really pulling away, Mikey Doble leads the rest of the pack in Mary Dance for 3rd place. It's Mikey Doble 3rd from Joseph Doble, then Matt Kendall, then Noller, Griffiths and Britton in that order. So we've got 5th, 3rd down to 8th all over each other. There goes Lee Britton up the inside of Kent off, if he can make it stick. He's very close. Griffiths has got the outside grip and hold onto the place. So coming up towards 3rd of the race left to go, 10 minutes almost done. It looks as though Redford and Blackwell Chambers have got that half-second gap, and they look pretty evenly matched at the front, Andy. They're not pulling away from each other, although I say that it takes a 10th and a half out of Blackwell Chambers, but Blackwell's not getting away too much. He's keeping them in his sights. It looks to be strong at some points of the circuit, whilst Redford has the advantage at others.
Yeah, it certainly does. Those two are getting away from the field. Currently still watching this battle for third all the way down to 8th position. Currently watching Tom Griffiths in 7th place, Lee Britton at the back. Just trying to get that place back, really fighting hard, but it's only those calls between this group of cars. Currently looking further back, Jason Griffith up P12 at the moment, up 11 places, so obviously starting this race at the back of the grid. Didn't have a good opening 2 races, but seems to be having quite a good third race, up 11 places from where he starts, but Griffith in 14th place, pretty much a disastrous third race, down 13 places from where he started, and it's probably a little bit of pressure as well, you know, being on the front of the grid, never been there before. It adds that little bit of pressure, and some people thrive in it, or other people unfortunately sort of buckle, and it looks like Chris is buckled under the pressure, currently finds himself down into P14th, but watching this battle again at the top half of the field. We're watching Jack Miller in P7, Tom Chris and Matt Kendall, Joseph Doble, Mikey Doble in that top 3rd position at the moment. But it's probably good for Mikey at the moment. Does have sort of rear guard from his brother. I think it's his brother. I'm sure you correct me if I'm wrong there. In 4th place, Joseph Doble. So does have that feeling behind that nobody's going to sort of yeet him into a corner. So he's able to try and put the hammer down to try and bridge the gap to these front 2 runners that we're currently back joined with Will Redford. I think he's fighting with himself now, just basically saying to himself, do you know what, let me finish this racing first, let me get my confidence back, because it seems to be hit in the last couple of rounds, and that's been able for like Mikey Doble to be able to catch back up to him in the championship. So he needs to sort of have his stable ground again. But looking back here from Joseph Doble, under a lot of pressure from Matt Kendall, and literally see the inside here into turn number 9 of Matt Kendall's MX-5 there, so putting under all sorts of pressure. You just see how close it is from Joseph Doble in 4th all the way down to Jack Noller in 7th, so a super close race in the air in the mid-pack.
It looks as though, and what would help with Will Redford was that mistake from Will Blackman Chambers just exiting the chicane on the run towards Clark Corner. The gap is now up to a second, but before that, Will Blackman Chambers had got himself within half a second and was pretty close onto the tail of Redford. There goes Blackman Chambers just at the front of the shot, the white and red car. He's been chased by the 2 Dobles as they come over the chicane. Absolutely right. Looks like the gap is pretty substantial. It's up to 2 seconds now between Redford and Blackwood Chambers now, so another mistake, another mishap from either Blackwood Chambers or just Redford picking his way through the traffic that quickly has really helped him out. Blackwood Chambers, for whatever reason, has lost a heck of a lot of time on this snap alone. He's there coming under the pressure from Mikey Noble. He can hold on to that 2nd place. It probably might be a matter of when he loses it rather than if he loses it, because maybe Blackwood Chambers, for whatever reason, has got any more pace underneath him to be able to pull away. Joseph Doble also coming on the threat, so whilst one Doble is going on the attack, the other one going on the defensive, inside line held against Kendall, who's now looking to try and make a move that others have done around the outside. He's confident enough to try and give it a go, but not silly enough to try and go side by side in a situation that might end up in contact and both cars hitting trouble. Now they come over the crest now for another lap once again over the chicane. Like Joseph Doble's got one relatively in control to see Mikey there and getting in front. And I think that Mikey think about a lap and a bit or so to try and make this one stick. If not, we'll have to another day and look at the next ones at Brands Hatch. We can try and make it stick.
Yeah, he's certainly going to get some decent points here. We'll obviously a first, second, and third if it ends up as it is. But Will Blackwood Chambers, he's almost like fallen off a cliff. Like you mentioned a couple of laps earlier, he was about half a second behind Will Redford. Now he's 2.2 seconds into the clutches of Mikey Doble, and Will Redford was probably thinking, "Come with me, Will Blackwood Chambers. I don't want you to let Mikey Doble through to 2nd place. I need them extra couple of points difference between 1st and 3rd rather than 1st and 2nd." So at the moment, Mikey Doble, you can see here, just all over the back of Blackwood Chambers, and it almost seems like his tyres have completely gone in that Mazda as we come by side into the chicane here. Oh, nearly. I think Mikey Doble just backed out, thinking it's probably best to stick firm. And we've got a car that's literally near enough stopped out on track. That could have been absolutely disastrous, and I think that has helped Will Blackwood Chambers with Mikey Doble probably having a little bit of a scare there coming up through the chicane. But this is the final lap here. Will Redford just showing what he could have done in that first race. 3.1 seconds ahead, but the battle there is for second place. Will Chambers looking like he's still going to be able to keep that second place over Mikey Doble in third. But a great outing for Mikey Doble. 1, 2 and 3 in the 3 races here at Knockhill. Joseph Doble coming over in 4th, Tom Griffiths in 5th, Matt Kendall in 6th, Jack Noller in 7th, Lee Britton in 8th. So pretty much better third race for him. John Perfect, who started second on the grid here in race number 3 in P9, and Steve Roberts in P10. So they're your top 10 here in race number 3. I mean, that was just fast and frenetic, that third race, but a completely different aspect we've seen from Will Redford. Really aggressive from the off, not the usual calm, composed, I'll just make my way through the field and pick it up by the end. He literally went out of the stalls like a racing horse, and it really paid off for him in that third race.
Certainly did, and Will Redford certainly getting the victory that he felt he should have deserved, possibly at least once more throughout the evening as well. But it's a win he desperately needed, because of course that streak of not scoring a victory got up to almost about 7 races or so. So he really did have to get himself back up. But it is a victory then for Will Redford in the end, after the win from Will Blackwell Chambers by 3.5 seconds. The checkered flag. Mikey Doble 3rd and Joseph Doble 4th, and Tom Griffiths rounding out the top 5. Matt Kendall in 6th, Jack Noller 7th, and Lee Britton, John Pethick, and Richard Jepp in the top 10, although that's not what my timing's telling me. It's telling me it's Steve Roberts in P10, but might be a bit of a glitch there. So it's then Harwood next on the order from Jason Graytrex, Trish Etheridge, John Higgins Jr., and it's Matt Goddard, Steve Roberts, who's been pushed down to 16th. It must be a post-race penalty, because he's showing...
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah, so it's from down what was 10th on the timing screen on my left-hand side down to 16th. England 17th after his spin late on, John Higgins in 18th place, and that's followed by Aidan Edgar, James Barrett, Richard Wilson, Callum Graytrex, James Riley, and Huell Rosenthal rounding out the 24 cars that we had in attendance tonight. Of course, it's a shorter circuit, which means a smaller grid, which means you don't have the capacity for kind of 30 plus cars usually on a place like Knockhill, but still 24 cars are looking pretty decent. That's strong points for each of the 3 championship contenders. It was a win for each of them out there tonight, for Doble, for Redford, and for John Higgins Jr. So that will certainly make the points table very interesting and very compacted as we come towards the final couple of meetings. The second to last one coming up, of course, being, I believe, at Brands Hatch in February, in a couple of weeks' time. Of course, then the finale coming up, which is at the only non-UK circuit on the field, which is the circuit formerly sponsored by Mazda, and that's the Uniseca Raceway in Monterey, California. Right, I believe we have 2 of our 3 race winners in the waiting area for interview, so we'll bring one of them first and foremost, let's bring the man who won the first race of the evening after a very back and forth scrap in the race, and that was Mikey Doble. Mikey, another solid evening for you, keeping relatively out of trouble, some good solid points and a victory to take away with it. Obviously everyone wants to win 3 out of 3, but I think given that Will Redford had some strife, and so did John Higgins, I think out of the 3 you were arguably the most consistent out of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit concerned about my pace in practice. It's not one of my stronger circuits, is Knockhill, so I was quite pleased to get that lap together and put it onto the front row in qualifying. I was just trying to play a points game tonight, really, stay out of trouble. Obviously nick the win in race 1 where I could, and keep it clean in races 2 and 3 with decent finishes.
A lot of back and forth, particularly with John Higgins at the front of that field, and lots of side-by-side action in that mix. It looked pretty entertaining from what we could see, but of course there was 1 or 2 hairy moments keeping out the way of traffic. I mean, at what point were you thinking that potentially John might have had the edge in some corners and you might have had the edge on others? Was it kind of that much back and forth, or did you have that much confidence that you were able to kind of see him off where you needed to?
Yeah, well, in race 1 he made quite a boisterous move to get past me on the last lap into McIntyre's, so I thought I'm going to throw a hard move back up the inside into Clark's and reclaim that win, which I managed to do. But then race 2 I was struggling a little bit at the beginning, so I pulled over and let him pass to try and draft away from the rest of the pack, and then I made a mistake going through the chicane, and then I put sort of 4 or 5 laps together where I was catching him by about 3/10 a lap, and kind of got the hang of the circuit a little bit. I think it clicked there, but just didn't have enough pace advantage to make a clean move on him into on the last lap or last couple of laps of race 2, so I just settled for second.
So very much a points game tonight in terms of taking advantage when others were having troubles. Of course, we've got 2 meetings left to go. There's Brands Hatch, then of course the finale at Laguna Seca. given how close it is in the championship and how much closer it would have gotten between the three of you up at the top, how confident are you about the next couple of rounds? Do you think that you've still got the pace to keep yourself in the lead and ahead of those guys? Or do you think they might have a little bit of something left up their sleeve in these last two meetings to try and spoil the party a bit?
Well, I'm hoping I've got something left up my sleeve because Brands Hatch is probably my favourite circuit. Not sure if we're on the Indy or the GP, but either way I like both of them. And also Laguna Seca is a track I typically go well round in official iRacing. So I'm looking forward to the last couple of rounds. I was glad to get this round out of the way. It's a bit of a bogey track, but yeah, going into Brands and Laguna Seca, I think it's definitely all to play for, and I think the championship's going to be super close.
Definitely look that way, and everyone looks competitive with each other out there, but you've all taken a win apiece, and that makes things a lot more interesting. Mikey, congratulations on the results tonight. Good solid driving all night from all three races, and that's the definite points you can bank to put yourself in a strong position for Brands and Laguna. So we'll see you next time, so get yourself ready, and we'll see you in a few weeks time in February. Well done.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
So let's bring in our other race winner from tonight who's waiting in the area, and that is Will Redford. Well, I think the term I'm hoping that with the primary thing is relieved, because I think you went about 6 races without a race win because you couldn't help getting involved in some incident or another, primarily not even your fault in most cases, but that looked like a race where you felt that if you're going to win a race, it had to be that one. You were driving out there like you really had the bit between your teeth. That was some gutsy stuff in race 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't make it easy for myself, do I? Especially after, race 1, landing at a funny angle and spinning off into the grass. So, I think I sort of had to be on it in that race to sort of bring the points back, because if Mikey beat me in that race, then it would be very difficult to sort of bring it back from there. But I think, obviously I will say, I think I say this every time, it could have been a lot worse, but again, I need to stop making mistakes in race 1 really, because it screws the rest of my other 2.
Yeah, and of course because you had that sort of unlucky run of results in the past couple of meetings, we were talking about right at the beginning, and we talked about this of course after each event as well, is that you're now at the stage where, because of the results that you've had previously where you haven't been able to hold on to the race victory or that sat further back, that now it's literally now the last couple of rounds, it really is going to be every single point counts, particularly when you've got Mikey scoring quite consistently, and John Higgins Jr. now showing some really good pace that can stay up there and with Mikey and yourself in terms of overall pace and race victory. So these next 2 races, and it's not to put pressure on at all, they really do have to be perfect, don't they, to keep yourself at the top?
Yeah, I think the next 2, at least maybe Brands Hatch, Laguna might be alright, are going to be quite drafty. I know this track was probably the least drafty we've been to all season, and I think I've managed to show my pace with going 2 tenths faster than anyone else on pole. So it's just tricky when you can't pull away and you can't use your pace, and you've got to use your racecraft instead, like at Donington or like at Silverstone. So it's going to be very close in these final 2 rounds, and I know Mikey is. I think maybe I could learn a thing or 2 from him, because he is so consistent. He's very consistent in real life. It's the way he won GT5s. He's very consistent, in this, which is why he's up there with me. So, I need to keep scoring high. Even if it means backing out of a move and dropping 1 place behind him. But I can't make any mistakes to the end now, and we'll see what happens. But it should be good fun anyway.
Is there going to be any particular preparation that you're going to do for these last 2 weeks? Is it just going to be business as usual, do the same thing you've done on the run up to these events, and just keep it as clean as possible and get bank as many points as possible? That's good for the goal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't really anything much different I can do. I can, I put in the practice when I can, and I turn up to the race and do what I do. I mean, I think the only thing that needs to change is sort of a little bit on the mindset to just, back it off a bit if I don't need to push 100%, and I might have a chance. I can't make any more mistakes, but we'll see what happens.
Get the car map out and just do some 10 minutes meditation, you'll be fine. Don't worry about that, I'm sure you can sort that one out, that'll be fine. Well, congratulations on the victory. Again, some slightly mixed results, but the way you drove in race 3 shows that you're still in this. There's still 6 races left to go, so it's not over yet, and I'm sure that you'll be fighting fit for Brands Hatch. So go get prepped, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time. But well done on race 3 victory, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.
The other person that we do have is a man who was
slow
close to victory, but looking quite close, and we're going to have a chat to him now. That's Paul Blackwell Chambers. Well, a strong result still in race number 3, so I think there's some solid results out there, but at one point in race number 3 it looked like you were away and gone and possibly out in front, but then just pesky Will Redford decided he wanted to have a bit more pace and catch you up, didn't he?
I was incredibly slow this weekend or this evening. Not really my best circuit, I'll admit. But no, I was very pleased with race 3. Race run 1 and 2 were fine. That was pretty much where I expected to be. You know, it was really good fun, really good racing. But race 3, reverse grid, as ever, brings the fun. Yeah, really happy with it. Managed to stick in P2. You know, when I saw Will Redford coming, I knew there was no hope to stay in front. But, you know, slot in behind, use the slipstream and learn where he's doing things better than I am, and worked out. Got P2. Really happy with that.
In terms of coming into this weekend, you were fourth in points, a little bit further back, but you managed to gather some decent results up and get some solid points. Going to the last two meetings now, Brands Hatch and Laguna Seca coming up. Laguna Seca is going to be arguably, undoubtedly, the unknown for everybody, because it's not a circuit which most people will have, if not any person, would have actually driven anything outside of the sim. So Brands Hatch might be a bit more sort of suited to those who go quite well around it in real life, but how you anticipate the last two meetings going? Brands is going to be quite a frantic one. Laguna Seca, though, on the other hand, looks like it's going to be quite the unpredictable affair, particularly if we've got a potentially 3 or 4 way fight for the title going into the last 3 races.
Yeah, Brands will be interesting. Obviously, most of us know the Indy circuit. Not many of us know the GP layout, so it'll be interesting to see how the drivers adapt to the back half of the track. But you know, definitely looking forward to it. It's a great circuit, so yeah, really looking forward to being around there. And then Laguna, yeah, I really enjoy it, and I've always done well enough around it. It depends how much the other drivers have done it. So I think Laguna will be a great circuit. You know, it used to be it used to be Mazda's track over in the US, so that's why we've picked it. But you know, the corkscrew, it's such a fun circuit to go around, so it should make some good racing.
And just a very brief one I'll mention as well is that we can talk a little bit about, obviously, real world plans for 2023, of course. I believe that, as we're seeing on the screen right now, you are going to carry the number 1 in Super Cup again this year, as you think you said you were looking to do. I've seen the registrations coming in the first 3 days. There's some very formidable names in already, and we're already past 30 for the season in 3 days. So I think it's safe to say, isn't it, that given the competition we've had here, given the competition we had last year as well, I think you're in for a tough one this year, mate.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, I know some of the people that are signing up, but it's going to be a long year. It's going to be tough.
That's one way you can put it, I suppose. It's going to be very competitive, and a lot of former champions in Mazda, shall we say, to put one term in there, and very competitive drivers on that list. So, but that's in a couple of months at Silverstone. We've still got Brands and Laguna Seca to go. But well done on tonight. Brands Hatch GP coming up next. That should be pretty interesting, and I imagine that you'll be on it as much as possible to try and get it amongst the top 3. So well done, and we'll see you then.
Perfect. Cheers for that. Have a good one.
Great stuff. That's conclusion then from round number 4, or race weekend number 4 for the BRSCC Winter Esports Series. 2 more still to go, and it is Brands Hatch on the full Grand Prix circuit coming up in a couple of weeks' time, so be sure to tune in for that. And any just some last thoughts from yourself?
I just thought it was Sorry, I just thought it was interesting there listening to Will Redford. It was almost like he was fighting with himself, really disappointed. He knows he's got the pace, you know, he just makes them little silly mistakes. And certainly in race 1, if you make the mistake in race 1, it really makes it hard for the rest of us. So it's interesting to hear his commentary or his interview in the first race in Alton Park. And then you fast forward to now, and there's a distinct sort of note change in his voice of how he's going to approach this. He's very much battling with himself at the moment. We know he's got the speed, we know he's got the pace, but at the moment he seems to be battling with himself. Whereas Mikey Doble, like you said, constantly putting in the results, being able to get a 1-2-3 here, even though it's not his favourite third round Knockhill. It's all about the consistency of getting the battling in. So really tricky track, but some 3 great races ahead of us that we've just witnessed at Knockhill. And we've got, like you say, Brands Hatch, a great track, GP track layout. A little bit drafty, like Will said, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But Laguna Seca, I think, is the dark horse in the series, and that could be a really firecracker. But I'm really looking forward to it. But another great 3 rounds ahead of us, and look forward to seeing probably a new person on the top of the roster going into Brands Hatch as well. So all to look forward to for the next round, mate.
Potentially, that is the case. It's been quite an eventful evening tonight, but as we say, each of the men in the top 3 in the championship standings coming into this evening's racing does take a win each. Now they carry it to the final 2 races. Brands Hatch and Laguna Seca now wait to see who will win the first ever BRSCC esports competition, the BRSCC Winter Esports Trophy. But that will come up in a couple of weeks' time. at Brands Hatch. Thanks to those who've been watching and subscribing and getting involved. Remember, if you're a real-world BRSCC racer, Champion Series registrations are open now if you go to racehub.brscc.co.uk. Also, race entries are set to open on Monday as well, so you'll be able to get yourself entered into any of the rounds you're entering for a particular series or championship, and that will be the case. If you want information on any of the championships and series that the BRSCC are running this year, you can head to the brscc.co.uk website and head to the Formula section. And as ever, big thank you to the likes of Sim1 Racing Simulations, Apex Racing TV for the broadcast as well, to Rob Blackwell Chambers for his support and the admin, of course to iRacing for the platform, as well on top of that with Nankang Tyres for their sponsorship, and also Run Your Fleet, who've been a club partner as well a long term. So for myself, Scott Woodwis, from Andy Thompson on commentary and Sam Fitzpatrick on production, thanks so much for watching. 2 more meetings left to go in the Winter Esports Series. Will it be Redford, Doble, Higgins Jr. or somebody else that stands on the top step come season end? Join us at Brands Hatch in a few weeks' time to find out. Bye for now.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.